Hi, beautiful beings. How are you all? Can you all hear me okay? Let me know if you can hear me. Hi, Muddy Paws. Hello, I'm Easy. Hi, Saitan. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? I've got a new mic, so I want to make sure it's working. Let me know if you can hear me, guys. Brilliant. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Saitan Inside. Right. So I've got a really exciting guest for my second live stream. He is an ex-farmer and an ex-slaughterhouse worker. So I'm going to introduce Justin now. I'm going to bring him on. Hi, Justin. How you doing?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Excited to talk to you and meet you. So your wife actually put me in touch with you via Facebook. And yeah, just want to say hello to everyone that's here as well, first of all. So hello, Vegan Taco. Hello, Bohemian Bee. I'm Evie's Vegan. We've got a few people in the chat, so that's good. So why don't you introduce yourself and give us a bit about your background, first of all?
For sure. So my name is Justin. When I was younger, I was got into some, my mom had left me when I was 13. She moved to the States and met somebody and got married, and I ended up living with my grandparents. And I didn't know my dad at the time either. She had never told me who my dad was. So I was kind of like a troubled teen, kind of like just kind of doing whatever I wanted and getting into trouble and stuff. And eventually, I caused enough trouble where my grandparents said, that's kind of enough. Like you're 17, it's time for you to go on your own. And we want to kind of retire from raising another kid as they already raised 3. And they helped me get my own, my first apartment and stuff. And my aunt had gotten me my first job in a pig farm. Not my first job, but my first farming job. Because there's not a lot of jobs you can do when you drop out of school and make a decenter wage, it was more than minimum wage, so it was better. So that's why I was interested, I guess. And it was just washing barns to start, nothing fancy and stuff. It was just holding a pressure washer and getting paid like $11 an hour. So I was like, okay, being 17, that's not bad. It's better than $8.50 or whatever it was at the time, right? So money thing.
I'm just gonna check it a minute. Someone said there's an echo. Have you got YouTube on in the background at all, Justin?
Maybe on the other thing I had open.
Thank you, B. Thank you, I'm Easy.
It might be because I don't have headphones.
Sorry, guys, for the interruption.
Yeah, is it this one? What is this? Is that a little bit better? I close the other.
Is that better, guys? I'm Easy, Bohemian Bee. Can you tell me if that's better?
We're just gonna look for some headphones.
Okay, no worries. Sorry, guys. And is the echo on me or is it on Justin? Still the same.
Still the same.
Yeah, if you grab some headphones and then we'll see if that fixes it.
I know. I had that problem before in an interview. I got asked to put on headphones.
No worries. Yeah, it's, I'm Easy, so it's echoing on you, Justin. Sorry about this.
Okay. One second. Yeah, right there.
Thanks, Titan. He's going to go and get some headphones now, and hopefully that'll fix it. How is everybody while we're just waiting? Is everyone okay?
Yeah, it's the normal jog.
Yeah. Doggo. Yeah, a little doggo in the background.
Let's try this.
Thanks, B. Oh, my sister-in-law's on. Hello, Hayley. How are you doing?
How's that? Can you hear me a little bit clearer?
Is that better, guys? Because there's no echo for me. Let me know if it's better now.
Hello? Hello?
Maybe it's my new microphone. Maybe I need to turn it down a little bit. Is that Is that better? So if Justin, you want to say just say
Yeah.
hello.
So, yeah, like I don't know where I was talking. I was like washing barns.
You said you just left home.
Yeah, I just left home and I was starting to wash hog barns. That's what I got into first with my aunt had got me a job. So I did that for a couple months, and they actually sold the barn that I was working in, and they sold to another company. And they asked me if I would be willing to move to a different town, about 3 hours away. It was more close to home, like where I grew up, by Winnipeg, and so I said, sure, I'll look at the job and go do it. So the second job I got into was the boar stud. So that was masturbating boars for semen, to put it lightly. Yeah. So basically, 17 years old, sitting there collecting semen from boars for about a year. That job was really difficult because it was just like a weird job to do, and it was something that you know you thought about every time you were doing it. Like, is this kind of like weird in a way, right? That you're holding a boar's penis and putting it in a cup, right? But the reason I got in and did that job was it was a high paying job. It was a salary position. So being 17, I was making $42,000 a year on salary. So it was a money thing again, right? They sucked you in at a young age without having a high school education. Kind of a pattern that industry has, right? Like taking advantage of people with looking for a high-paying job with a low education, right?
So I just turned my mic was picking up you, so I've turned my mic over. So hopefully that will be better. Carry on.
Oh yeah, completely different than mine too. Yeah. So that was. I did that for about a year. It was really kind of straight up. I didn't like it, so I got into the fair ring. So that's where we place animals. So that job entailed like helping to birth the animals, assisting them, and then the next stage, the teeth, tails, castrations, and tattoos, and injections in both, like for iron and anti-inflammatory, just because you cause so much to the animal. So you have to medicate it. And they did all this without any kind of veterinary training or anything. Just some guy just here, this is how you do it. And showed an 18-year-old at the time how to do this. So that was basically that area. It was a very big job and lots of, obviously, again, doing pretty gross things in the sense, right? Like having to pick up after birth and all that. I always I was not like a really strong stomached guy, so it was always kind of tough to do some of that stuff. And my asthma was slowly getting worse throughout the time I was working in the barn. It was always so hard to breathe in those places because it's just so dusty and hot in the summertime. And then in the winter time, you're going from like 90 degrees to a 10-degree hallway. So it's like such a temperature change always. So it was really hard on you. And then from that one, I went into the breeding section of farming. So that's basically, the rape of an animal where you're taking advantage of the reproductive system. And with that, you're basically having a boar walk in front of them, and it arouses them, and then you just basically take advantage of that natural habit. And then we would take these like 2-3 foot catheters. It was like a big plastic straw, basically, and you would put it inside them, and then you would put the semen inside them that I would have collected, earlier on. So, and then with that job, then what we would do too is to help achieve a higher conception rate, you have to really stimulate an animal being on top of her. So it was kind of like I think back on it now, pretty messed up what we were doing. We were basically sitting on the back of the animal and rubbing them with our legs and grunting and groaning and making sounds, right, to help it happen. Because what happens is it will naturally suck up the semen, and that's what you want to achieve. So in doing all these things that they taught me, I was able to achieve like the highest born alive in Manitoba. So we had, it was 24 born alive and 21 survived. And they actually rewarded me with buying our whole barn pizza. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, it's messed up, right? And, this is what they do in the industry to help employees think that, they're doing a good job, to help brainwash that whole situation, right? Because even if you don't like what you're doing, you're getting these rewards and bonuses, right? Incentives, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, so it's really rude what you're doing to the animal when you're making these noises. Like, I just think back on it now, like, it's pretty messed up. Like, it's basically a bestiality in a way, right? You're just doing some weird shit with animals. And the other thing with the breeding area too, at the end of the day, we really would, we have like the new breeding stock, and we would go into these confined barns, and you would literally sit down with these 2-3 month-year-old female animals, because they haven't had their cycles and they're still too young to breed. And we would just sit down and talk to them and be like, let them smell us and get used to us so that they would trust us. And, we sometimes I bring them apples and stuff like that. You want to gain their trust so that they're not scared of you, because they've obviously came from a scary situation, having taken from their moms and all that, and then being shoved in these trailers and brought to these barns by themselves, and they're only 2 to 3 months old. And then you have this guy coming in every day, and he's just sitting with you, so they don't really think anything maybe bad's going to happen, right? And then when it comes to their breeding cycle time, you've gained this trust, and then you put them in the lineup, and then they're not as scared of you. So you really like earn that trust of the animal, and then you just take it away. And it's something that I really like think back on now, is just like, it's really disturbing to see, because that's happening in all these quarantine barns. And these animals don't really understand, right? They think this guy's their friend, and then before you know it, he's raping them and taking advantage of them. Because when they're breeding at 6 months old, they're so young that when they go to farrowing, they have a lot of issues giving birth, because they haven't fully developed, because we're wanting to breed young and start their cycles sooner. And
get the most money you can out of them, right?
Exactly, because they only have so many parities after that, right? There's so many litters they can do. Like, roughly a sow would get 2 years out of her, about 9 litters, and 9 to 10 litters, sometimes more. And what happens is, at the beginning, we would inject them with fertility drugs to control the time they give birth. Because if a young animal that's, a year, 9 months old or whatever, right? Because if we breed them at six months old, within 3 months, they'll be having a litter. So, at 9 months old, they still haven't fully developed, and then they're giving birth to these animals. And if they don't do it when we're there, they'll get stuck inside them, and then you'll lose the litter and the sow. So that's why we control it with fertility drugs that the girls or the women in the barns weren't allowed to really use, because it would mess up their cycles, or it could cause them to have an abortion if they didn't know they were pregnant just by touching their skin, because it was such a powerful drug. So, like I said, we would inject that the night before, and 12 hours later, we basically control when they're all giving birth, so we could assist them, so that we don't lose as many or lose any animals. So, they've really taken advantage of the whole system, and then found a way to make it work for their way. And then same thing too, I didn't touch on that too, at the boar stud, we actually gave the boars that didn't want to jump on the dummy and get masturbated, we'd actually give them pig Viagra. It was an injection we can give them that would make them horny and make them just go for it. So again, we're forcing these systems to happen, right? It's not even natural at this point when we're injecting the boar to make him have his ejaculation, and then the sow, same thing. We're forcing her to have her baby at the time we want, just so we don't kill her and the babies, because we chose to bred her at 6 months old, when in a natural habitat that would never have happened. At 6 months old, she's still a baby. She would have been, woo, she'd be gone, right? Because they're very jumpy. Their first breeding. That's why we do that break the trust thing, so that when we go to breed them, they're not as scared of the human behind them. So it's really disturbing, right? So that's basically like that whole system in a nutshell, and of what I kind of experienced within the farming area. And then the other thing too is the environmental impact that we go into, because we're washing those farrowing rooms every month. They're using lime degreasers and disinfectants, and it's all going into the pits. And then we're just flushing those pits into those big sloughs behind the barn. So people think it's just poo and pee, but really it's actually a bunch of chemicals every month that are being poured in there that aren't going through a filtration system besides our ground. And if any other industry were to do that, it would be, like even the slaughter plants have a higher, like they have more things they have to follow when it comes to the water leaving the facility, like the sewage water. Mm-hmm. But these barns don't have any of that, right? So it's just all this chemicals and all this, and also like the tail clippings, the testicles, all of that, all just gets thrown in the pit. So there's also animal parts in there too, right? Like we would also have complaints from farmers where we would be dropping needles because if you got to think, if you're vaccinating 3,500 piglets, you have to change your needle every 10 to 20 pigs. Sometimes you drop your whole needle bucket in the pit. All those needles would go into the field. There was even times where farmers were complaining about the amount of needles that were on their fields from the sewage being sprayed onto their fields. They'd get out of their tractor and they'd see needles and they'd be like, you guys got to be more careful. So like the environmental impact that goes on to these fields where they grow food for the animals is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, you just don't think about those sorts of things. And I always thought, I ate meat for 40 years and I genuinely thought that it was all natural breeding. I had no idea until I went vegan, just, what goes in on it. So how did you feel when you were doing that?
It bothered me. There was a lot of drug abuse and drinking and partying that would kind of ease what I did during the day to like not think about it. That's how a lot of workers deal with it. A lot of the older workers were always like super hungover and stuff like that, and they'd be super upset when they were at work and violent with the animals. But yeah, a lot of drug abuse and drinking and partying to not really think about what you were doing, kind of forget it. And then, even at the time, like, that's why I couldn't even continue doing some of the jobs. I was like, let's go try something else, this is, I don't like doing this, right?
What was the turning point that when you said enough and I can't do this anymore?
Well, that came later on in my life when I'd already met my dad and started a new career. So I still did some more farming activities. I did chicken catching for a while, where we caught chickens. And then I also worked in a cut plant too. Excuse me. So you want me to talk on those two things first?
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
Kind of lead into where going vegan. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that kind of goes into why I didn't like hog farming. I was like, I want to try something else. So I went from hog farming to the cut plant. I had a friend's mom who worked at a cut plant. And it was a higher paying job again, right? I was maxed out in the hog farm. You can never get over like $14 an hour. That was it for Canada. It was like most you could get. And, I'd already reached the max and you were just getting your bonuses and there wasn't really much else. And like I said, I was kind of getting tired of working with animals and some of the gross stuff we were doing. But, like I said, I didn't have a great stomach for it. But I mean, like if you can turn things off when you're supporting yourself, right? I mean, you got to live, you got to eat, you got to, I've been with my wife, Carolina, since we were 17. We've been together 14 years. So she's been through it with me, right? So we were always living together and stuff. So had to support ourselves. And, that comes into the situation too. So yeah, she got me a job in this cut plant and, it was about $16 to $17 an hour. Eventually got up to 18. And there you're just basically dismembering animals and making it look nice for their grocery store and packaging it all pretty. And, some of the things we would see there is like, if there was anything wrong with the meat, we would just cut it off. You know what I mean? If there was some weird stuff on it or if anything, like it would just get cut off. It's not like that whole piece of meat would go. They would just get rid of the one bad thing.
Like tumors.
Yeah, like tumors and gross things. There was even things where people would see like white spots on the lungs of the pigs kind of leading towards that they had some kind of respiratory illness at the same time. And, the lungs don't get eaten, but the rest of the animal does, right? So, yeah, a lot of people don't think about that. I mean, they don't really care if there's a bad section of the animal here, they'll use the rest of it. So a lot of people could be eating animals that already had some disease or something in them, or possibly even some tumors or cancers. Also, like if meat fell on the floor, they would pick it up and they would go into a bin and it would get cleaned off and put back onto the line too. It was not like a a slab of ribs that was worth $150 was just going to go into the garbage. They would literally just wash it off and put it back in the box, right, with some cleaner. And these are things people don't think about, right? I mean, the company's not going to throw it out. They don't have a garbage bin. They, in their eyes, they sanitize and clean that floor every day. So it's, you know, it's going to get what they call cleaned off in the wash bin and put back on the line. And that job too, because it's so cold in there, like it's really hard on the workers' bodies. And two, a lot of the workers were foreign workers, right? They were workers not even from, they were brought in from other countries to come work in our slaughter facilities. And when we do that, they're locked in, like they can't leave the job. So you really kind of, if they don't like the job, they can't leave the job for like a year, because it's like a contract. It's like, hey, you come to Canada, work on our facility as a foreign worker, but you can't leave. Like if you leave, you have to go back home. So they really kind of take advantage of those people. In both situations of the chicken cut plants, the chicken slaughter plants that in my town here that we do our vigils at, it's basically 80% foreign workers, and we've interviewed some of them, and you know, they just totally take advantage of them. And if they don't like the job, they send them back to wherever they came from, and it's, you know, they don't even get another chance to find a job that actually be healthy and happy to do. So yeah, it's a tough. It's tough on the workers, but I mean at the same time they know what they're doing, and they know they're cutting up animals. So I mean it's again, I guess, a money thing.
People have got to earn a living though, right? And that's the similar thing over here. Sort my mic out again. It's not right. When I go to a house over here, and it's, you see all the temp staff going in and out all the time, and it's all foreign workers, and hardly any of them speak any English. And yeah, it's exactly the same in the UK.
Yeah, and it's sad that we are doing that to them, because they want a better life, and they're coming from generally not a very good place, right? And they come here and they see that, you know, all they have to do is kill animals, and they get to live in a better world, right? So it's not fair what we're doing to them. So yeah, after that, I that's when I got into the chicken catching. So I tried that for a while, because I had a friend that was doing that. So well, what happened? They actually shut the plant down I worked at. So they laid everybody off. So I had other choice to move to like Brandon, which was like 2 hours away, or I could just find a new job. So I kind of found a new job, because I didn't want to move again. I didn't like moving lots. And that's when I did the chicken catching, and that job was super difficult and super violent to the animals. Like we were told to, it was called piecework. I don't know if you guys have that over there, where you kind of get paid by how hard you work. It's not an hourly wage. So it's just like determined by the foreman how much you'll get paid. You'll get a percentage of the pay. So we were told if you wanted to get the full pay, you'd have to carry 6 birds in each hand. So you would basically take a bird by each finger, and then you'd have 6 birds in each hand. So you'd have 12 birds, and you'd have to run to the crates. And it was basically like a race, right? Because everybody was like running and racing and throwing them in the crates and then going back, because everyone wants their full wage. And that job too was overnights. So that job, there was lots of people that were doing drugs during the job, like to keep them stimulated throughout the night, right? Because it's an overnight job. And people kicking birds, like it's some of the worst things I've seen people do is to the birds. It's ridiculous how some of these guys would treat them. I mean, we would just pick up random people too if we needed more people too. Like there was no credentials to do this job. You know, and maybe it's gotten a bit better now, but I mean, from what I've seen with our chicken catchers, it's still about the same. They're still kind of the same crews, same guys, and there's only one way to do it, really. So
I won last week for a vigil. I didn't get any footage, unfortunately, because the side of the trucks were closed.
Yeah.
And the security, you got a good relationship with the security guy there. He came out and he went, "Oh yeah, you won't see much. We're looking after the welfare of the chickens by covering the side of the truck because it was cold." And me and my friend just looked at each other and went, "You're looking after their welfare. They're about to go and get killed." But they kill 1 million chickens a week just in that slaughterhouse. So, and I think, you know, when I speak to people on the streets, it's like, "I only eat chicken." It's like everybody eats chicken. There's just so many. I think they're like the highest, aren't they? After the animal, the highest killed.
Yeah, and the conditions of the birds in the barns were just appalling. Like fleas walking, like they were just covered. Like it looked like there was things moving on their feathers, what feathers were left, even I should say. And like these little black things, and there were like these little fleas. And almost every barn we went to, you could see them. And that ammonia strong smell, like the smell of chicken, it was really weird. Like I literally could not eat chicken after doing that job for a year or two, because it was just like every time we cooked it, we smelt the barn. Like my wife even had tried it, because she's like, yeah, it's not that hard. She's not that hard. I can handle it. Because whatever, we're young, right? And she came and did it for 3 days, and she was like, that's it. Like I can't do anymore. She like had to go to the van, and she was done. Right? It was just such a physically demanding job, because you're bending over, picking up, bending over. You're in these hot, humid barns with this high ammonia level. Birds peeing and pooping on you because you're carrying them upside down. And like I said, there were so many times too, if there was injured birds, sometimes people would just break their necks and kill them right there, or kick them, or heck, you'd step on birds. It was just, it's horrifying what they do in these, in some of these barns. And too, there's not like there's regulations or anything. It's dark in there, so there's nothing, like I don't know how we could make it so it was better. But I mean, I'm not a welfarist, so I mean, we just end the whole thing personally. It's just crazy because it's so violent to the animals, that whole chicken catching thing. And they live for so short too. We've modified their lifespan, and there are chickens here that the company that grows in our town, they're 32 to 38 days old. It's almost it's hard to believe we're just eating babies. That same thing when I went vegan too. I didn't really understand that pigs were just babies. Like they're, the pigs that were going for food and stuff, they're roughly 6 months old, 4 to 6 months old, depending on what they're looking for in the slaughter facility, right? Because that new thing I've been seeing now, we've been seeing at the slaughter plants, is they're killing a lot smaller animals now. It's not the full size pig; it's like a half of a full size pig. It looks like a 4-month-old, and I saw it too when I was in Toronto, where they would like have these like smaller pigs, like I don't know, like they have them on display at the meat thing, and it's like a whole animal, and it's sitting outside on like ice and stuff. It was so weird when we were in Toronto, and we walked through one of the areas, and I saw that because we were doing some activism in Toronto for the Animal Liberation Conference. Mm-hmm. And that was a really interesting experience to see that, because I was just, I'd never seen that before, where you have like the smaller animal, it's a full animal. And, we've been seeing that so much more in our facilities where they're killing them now. So they're just babies. And that's something that when I finally made the connection in 2017, that it was just like, wow. Because I was your typical Canadian kid too. I went fishing, I went hunting, I shot guns. I did all of that growing up. I was a Cub Scout, I was in Scouts my whole life, got all my badges, did all that stuff, right? So I was a wilderness kid. So for me, it was just like, that's how we have to do it, because I didn't know any better. And so in 2009, I was still working at a hog farm. It was a 700 farrow to finish, and I was the breeding manager of that barn. So I did that job for about 1.5 years. I was working there, and I was always wanting to know who my dad was. And my wife started to really push my family to find out. Vegan FTA, nice. So my wife really started pushing my mom and my family members to try and give me more information about who my dad was. And so I finally got his name, and we called him up, and he was shocked. He couldn't believe it, honestly. He didn't believe that he had a son. He was willing to meet me, but he had a heat stroke really bad, and actually lost some of his memory for like 2 or 3 years before I found him. And so he didn't really remember his youth too much because of that. But his wife, who he had been with the whole time, remembered a lot of everything. And so they were really open to meeting me and stuff like that. So I met my dad and started a relationship with him, and it was pretty cool, right? Because you went your whole life without knowing who he was, and then all of a sudden, he had all these bad things in my head, right? Is he in jail? Was he a bad person? Was he, my mom told me all kinds of stories when I was a kid, right? And she, never stayed to one thing, and that's why I never really understood what happened. And whatever, that's what she thought was best at the time to do, and I can't change that. But I mean, it made me who I am today, right? So, yeah, I just finally said to him, after knowing him for a month, I was like, well, because he was a bricklayer, like a mason, a bricklayer, so he built buildings and stuff and owned a company. And I was like, would you be interested in hiring me? Like, I really kind of want to get out of farming. I've been doing this for 5 years, and it's just a horrible job. And it smells and my asthma and everything, right? Like, I just wanted to try something new, right? And I'd done, some construction when I was 16 before I got into farming with like framing houses and stuff. So I always thought construction was kind of fun and stuff, but I didn't really have an avenue to get into it. So I just said, yeah, would you hire me? The first thing he said to me is, I'll hire you, but if you suck, I'll fire you. Typical kind of I don't know if you know any bricklayers out there, but I mean, typical kind of bricklayer, just kind of like, yeah.
The labourer, yeah, no, totally get that. My an ex-stepfather of mine was a tree, well, he cut down trees and was a logger and stuff like that. And I worked for a bit in his sawmill, and he's like, you better crack on, even though you're like a 5 foot girl. Yeah, you got to work it still. I ended up having one massive arm from the nail guns. I was making wooden bits, and I had to swap arms because I had
you have to get used to the other ones to keep it balanced, right?
But no, that's good, and I think it's good to have a male role model like that, especially in your own father, to go, and make you push yourself. Definitely, well, for sure. It's important.
Yeah, especially because I didn't have that growing up, so it was kind of like it was nice to it was nice to try something new and to have his support, and and so I did that for I labored for him for about 1.5 years, and then I said, would you sign me up to be an apprentice, because I've done the laboring thing, I've shown I like it and I can do it, and I want to get on the trowel and build some stuff, and I think this would be really fun to do what my dad did, be a bricklayer, and then his dad was a bricklayer, so that's kind of like a family thing now. And then as I got into bricklaying, I found out my mom's dad's brother was a bricklayer too. So like there's a ton of bricklaying within my family history. So for me, it was kind of like, why didn't I find this sooner? It would have been so cool to be involved in it and not have to experience all that other stuff. But I mean, now I can at least speak on what I learned and help the animals and help other vegans really relate to what they probably would never even know happens. Bring a lot of light to what, you just hear it and you see it. And sometimes we never have we don't have a worker to explain it. And I think when workers and, the inspectors and people start talking out, it can really bring more people on board with veganism and bring more awareness to what's going on. So yeah, I became an apprentice and did all my apprenticeship through him, and became a Red Seal journeyman bricklayer, and did that for about I'm still a Red Seal bricklayer now, but I went to another company because he was a little bit slow. So I was working for another company, and we were working at the Crown Royal plant. It's like an alcohol producing plant, and it's a big, huge facility. And we'd been there for 2 years already. And one morning we were going to work, and beautiful morning, sunny day, like can ask for a nicer morning, right? And going through the last intersection before we get to the job site, and it's on the highway. We're doing about 85K, and a lady didn't stop at the stop sign crossing the highway and took us out on the highway. And there was 4 guys in the truck. I was driving. And it was just like, we saw her coming. We knew she wasn't going to stop. And we just all said, everybody just screamed kind of like, stop. And I cranked the wheel super hard to try and miss her. And I put us into a barrel roll, and I just clipped the front of her car. So we rolled 2 times, and we wrapped the truck around a telephone pole. So the roof of the truck hit the pole, and it kind of like buckled into the pole and then landed back onto the wheels. And I don't really remember anything from the airbag on, but one of the witnesses came running up to the vehicle. He cut my seatbelt, and I apparently woke up and scared the shit out of him because he thought I was dead or something. And he helped me out of the truck, and I don't remember any of this. And I was standing in a field when I finally came to, and turned around and just saw the chaos behind me. And yeah, the roof is collapsed in, like everyone was hurt. The lady was in her car. Once paramedics came and they had to bring a helicopter in to take one of my boss, because he had a tibia, femur, pelvis, collarbone, and a gash on his neck. So the guy who cut my seatbelt ripped his shirt off and like put pressure on my boss's neck and basically saved his life until the paramedics could get there and stuff. And so I was watching all this happening, right? Because I was the only one that was actually able to get out of the truck. And then they cut the roofs off and all that, and everybody got out, and everybody ended up surviving. And the first thing the paramedic said to me is, if I didn't swerve, if I didn't like try to miss her, I would have killed this lady. She was about 80 years old, and that would have been it, because it would have been just a dead T-bone, and not to mention somebody in the truck too, because then that would have been a straight stop. At least we kind of ricocheted off and we rolled at least. That's what the paramedics and the guys first thing they said to me. If you didn't do that, it would have been way worse. So I always felt really good about that, because it was like a good reaction time. But I also felt, after that, you always second, was I doing something wrong? Was I in the wrong lane? It was a really weird intersection too. It was like two lanes on either side and a median. So it was something I always played on my mind a little bit. And then after the car accident, everybody was fine. It was like a month later, my wife was getting a tattoo, like not fine, but recovering, right?
Yeah.
And
so
and even the lady, she only got a broken ankle. So like everybody was generally pretty lucky. And my wife's getting a tattoo, and I'm telling the tattoo artist about the story and my hog farming and everything, and she recommended to watch What's the Health. She hadn't seen it herself, but with my grandpa going through cancer at the time, I forgot to say that too. My grandpa was going through cancer in 2017 as well, a lung cancer, which is kind of self-inflicted from smoking. But I mean, cancer is still cancer, and when we catch it early enough, we can stop it and maybe prevent it from coming back. So with him going through cancer and me going through what I went through, I was interested in this documentary with knowing what I know about hog farming and farming, and I was like, yeah, we'll watch it. So we went home and watched it that night. It was like August 27th in 2017, something like that. And I watched that documentary and I was blown away, because I was like, this is everything I did in the hog farms. And this documentary is American documentary from North Carolina, a lot of the stuff they were showing. And I could see the similarities to North Carolina to Manitoba, where we lived. And I was like, that's the States, this is Canada, this shouldn't be the same. Like, they have way more people than us, but yet we have barns surrounding our town every mile road. It's crazy how many hog barns we have in our community. And it's exactly like they showed in that movie, where they build them close to these small communities. They give them a job, and take advantage of these communities, basically, because they're usually minorities and communities where people don't have a good education. And they really take advantage of that. And how's it going with that?
So was how
Pardon?
made you vegan? Was what how made you vegan?
Oh yeah. What the Health? Yeah. So What the Health? Yeah. Sorry. What the Health? So yeah, that movie. I just made so many relations to that movie, and then seeing how you could eat in a vegan diet and be healthy too and survive, and the links to cancer that they were doing. So I did some research that night, basically, and started looking at it. And I was like, I don't think I want to consume animals anymore, just because of what I was seeing. And, I did some research on at the time I'd found James Aspey and Joey Carbstrong. Those were two of the big people that I saw. James, because of his cancer story, I could really relate to that with what I was going through with my grandpa and watching him go through that. And then knowing that I want him to live healthier after that, right? And then Joey, with his background, having a background involved with crime and getting in trouble, that was very similar to me, hanging around at gangs and getting in trouble and doing all that stuff. So with those two guys, I really saw that it could be done, right? And I made the decision to just go vegan and start cooking, and because when you're the first person to go vegan, you really kind of got to do all the cooking in the house, right? So it was a lot of tofu the first little while and different tofu things. And for me, I just once I started to see that I could survive and thrive on plant food and vegan food, it was a no-brainer at this point, especially once you start doing the research into like the dairy industry, and then you watch like the Cowspiracy and all these other things. Like, I never wanted to work with dairy cows because I didn't want to ruin chocolate milk.
Yeah.
I was like one of those kids. We grew up in Canada. It was like milk was like handed to us for free in schools. Like, it was like got milk, and it was like a milk program. And it was just milk, right? And so that was really pushed on all of us to drink milk. So like when I was a kid, I used to drink like 4 liters of chocolate milk like a week. And I was like overweight. I was like my biggest weight was 220 pounds when I was 13. So I was a big boy. I really struggled with like being overweight and stuff like that. And now I really wonder if that was the dairy I was drinking, right? I was drinking so much of this dairy, and it's just giving me asthma, and my asthma was really bad as a kid. Like, I always struggled with it. So like for me, it was like switching to, like soy and almond milk, and, right away starting to notice the phlegm going down and my breathing being better, and going to the bathroom being different. I was just like, this is just, it's really working.
Then?
Pardon?
How long did it take?
To go vegan? Like,
no, to notice the difference in your health.
I don't know. I would say within the next couple months. Like, it wasn't right away, but I was definitely noticing my asthma was better. That's something I noticed right away. I was starting to not use my puffers as much and being able to breathe a lot better. Immediately, because I cut dairy out right away. That was like easy. Well, the cheese was a hard one. Cheese is always kind of a hard one for people, especially, in 2017, we didn't have the cheeses we have now. The vegan, where we've gone with veganism in 3 years is pretty amazing, because, we had very limited selection for stuff like that. So yeah, it was within a couple months, and my daughter is where we noticed it the quickest. Like, she really struggled with like stomach aches, and her asthma was really bad too, and eczema on her skin too. So we really noticed it with her, probably just as much with me with asthma medicine and not being able to use it within 3 to 6 months. I think her asthma was completely gone and not needing puffers, to the point her asthma doctor was like, whatever you're doing, keep doing. And I'm like, you see that dairy poster on your wall? You should take that off there. Because, the doctor's offices even promote milk. And it's like, you guys, like, if you can simply remove milk, and then all of a sudden her breathing charts are going down and now they're going up. It's like, we're doing, and the doctor's saying, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And then I even suggested to her, do you think milk can be the reason? She's like, no, I don't see the connection. I was like, yeah. So I mean,
no training on it at all. I've got an interesting question for my sister-in-law, actually.
Yeah.
So if you hadn't been working in your house, would you have become vegan?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, I don't know. Like, I probably eventually would have met my dad. It's hard to say, right? I don't know where I would have, yeah, I'm not sure. It's tough to say, right? That's a tough one, because it was that was basically the big thing that for me, it was a no-brainer, because I killed so many animals, and I didn't even speak on the ways I killed the animals, and they're very horrific and kind of grim and dark. So, I mean, like, let's just put it this way. The only way I haven't seen an animal die is to burn to death. So, I mean, that's pretty sad. Strangulation, drowning, because if they fall in the pits, they can drown. Yeah, so I mean, like, the boar stud, they did electrocution. There's a short video clip that one of the activists in Toronto did of me explaining, like, the worst thing I've ever seen happen in the barn was basically we had 220 electrical outlet, and they put like, they had a welding plug, and then we put booster cables on the other end of the welding plug, and then we put a tail to ear, and we would electrocute the boar for 5 minutes until he died. And usually it would work, but this time it didn't work. And then the animal, we shot it 5 times and it still didn't die. And then it had to be stabbed. So it was like, for me, I can't, if I didn't experience all that, I don't know if I would have switched so quickly. Because, like, for me, that was the thing. Like, I saw what I did, and I couldn't continue purchasing stuff that I knew I was a part of. And that's too where I'm at too, is like it's a very difficult thing when you see vegans that kind of tread in dangerous waters, you know, like kind of crossing veganism into other areas, you know, like saying riding horses is vegan. And for me, it's like no amount of animal abuse is okay with me anymore because of what I did to the animals. Like there's no gray area for me. It's like you're either an abuser or you're not. So yeah, I don't know if I wouldn't have experienced that. I think it'd been a lot tougher to probably go vegan. It might have still happened though, especially with like I'm a very research orientated guy. I like doing research and finding out information for myself and not just to be told things. So I hope I would have gone on the track eventually. So
You actually went vegan the same weekend that I did.
Oh really?
Yeah, I watched Cowspiracy, What the Health, and Vegetated in the same day.
Oh wow.
And my husband came back from his parents and I said, I'm done, I'm going vegan. And he was like, okay, I'll do it with you. But yeah, it was What the Health was one of them, but it was I think it's the 29th. It was the bank holiday weekend here in the UK. But yeah, wow. It was 2017. Yeah, same weekend.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, because that's what I mean. Once you see the light, it's like, I don't know. And the big thing too is once you find out you can survive and thrive, and there's lots of different groups of people that have in the past, like Buddhists and all these people that, you know, eat a vegan lifestyle generally and don't consume animal products. They've done it forever. And when you find out you can actually survive and thrive, it's like, what's the government been telling me? You know, like what's really been going on with these food systems? And then you find out about subsidies and all this other stuff. So it's crazy.
So Bohemian Bees asked a question: when you were a slaughterhouse worker, Justin, did you eat the particular animal you worked with, or did you eat less of it at the time?
Yeah, less. Like even when I was hog farming, I had a harder time with the pork, like the smell of it and stuff like that. Like sometimes, like you could almost smell the animal when you, like, especially bacon, the smell. A lot of the smell of the cooking bacon, I would just associate with the smell of the farm right away. So like pork, I didn't eat for years after hog farming. It took me, I'd say a couple of years to eat pork. I think it was probably, it was a tough one because even that smell of a ham, the smoked ham, like that, it would all just remind me of that barny kind of smell. And same with chicken too. Chicken, when you work with chicken, like I could not, like seeing those fleas and all the things growing on them and seeing how we were treating them, and like it was not an animal I could eat after that too. So it was very tough. But that's also why I said I never worked with the cows too, because I didn't want to ruin eating dairy and steak, right? So I mean, that's totally a valid thing, because you know, once you work with it and see it, it definitely makes it hard to go back and do it.
And I'm gonna, if you can save your questions for later, I've got a few questions I want to ask Justin first, and then I'll bring up some more questions if that's okay with you guys. So when did you first become active? So you went vegan around the 27th of August 2017. When did you first become active?
So it was the next summer in 2018. We were coming home from Winnipeg, and there was a slaughter, like a slaughter semi, or a semi tractor carrying the animals, like a big, huge 53-foot semi. And he had taken a corner from a gravel road onto the highway too sharply, and the back wheels of the semi were about 4 feet off the ground, and the trailer was half in the ditch. It was about 30 degrees outside, and he wasn't going anywhere. And so we were already vegan at the time. And I know just from my experience with those semis how hot they get in hot conditions. So we drove past it, and I was like, no, we got to go back there and take some pictures of this. Like, this is unacceptable. What about if they flip the semi with the animals in it and nobody's there to document it and anything? So, we turned around on the highway, started turning around, and we tried to contact our local SAVE group that was in Winnipeg and see if they could come out and help us and videotape what was going on. They weren't able to, but they asked us to just videotape what we could, and then they'll see if they can get some media attention. So, I went up to the truck. We pulled over on the side of the road. I went up to the truck and just told the driver, like, what are you doing? You got to take these animals out of here. You got to get a truck. You got to unload this before you flip it over. He's like, we're getting a tow truck. And I just told me to, like, F off. And
And, you know, I'm like, well, I told him, I'm going to videotape this whole thing. If you flip the semi with the animals in it, you're going to be liable for it, bud. Like, you know, and I'm not going anywhere. And so I could tell the animals were in distress, and they were panting, they were foaming, their mouths were open. It was, like I said, it was very hot. So I had some water bottles in my car. So I went and got some water bottles, and I started giving the ones water that I could give water to. I mean, I couldn't do them all, but I mean, I did what I could, right, for who was close by. And videotaped me giving them water. And, you know, then the tow truck arrived. And so I backed up and gave him some space to pull it out. And I warned the tow truck driver too. I'm like, if you flip this over with these animals, I'm going to be recording it, and then you're going to be on the news, bud. Like, you know, I personally think you should be unloading these animals before you do anything, because, you know, they could move and they could flip this whole thing, right? Because it was a full semi. And he said, don't worry, you'll be fine. So I was like, okay, well, I'll videotape it. So they pulled it out. It didn't flip over. You know, but I still videotaped it all. So we went to the city, and we showed our footage to the local chapter in Winnipeg, and they were able to get one of the local media people to come do an interview at one of the parks in the city. So yeah, we did an interview with Global News, and just showed what I had seen and what my thoughts were. And you know, they kind of did like a 50-50 piece, like kind of 50% for the activists, and then they had Manitoba Pork kind of give us, oh, they shouldn't be giving them water. And I'm like, you know, I'm an ex-farmer, like, it's not going to hurt them. You know, they're going to give them water at the slaughter facility when they get unloaded. So what's the deal, right? Like, you know, so yeah, so that was kind of my first thing that kind of got me into activism right there. Is then the local chapter asked me to, like, you know, kind of get involved. And, you know, we didn't live super close, so we said we'd do what we could do. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so that kind of got me into it. And you know, I was still researching James and Joey and keeping, you know, up to date with what they were doing. And I really kind of started to draw towards Anonymous for the Voiceless, seeing what they were doing, because I really liked that kind of street activism, like getting, you know, out there and talking to people. So, you know, we you know, got in contact with Anonymous, and we started a local Anonymous for the Voiceless chapter in Winnipeg, and started doing Cubes of Truth. And that was kind of what got us into activism, kind of like our own kind of thing, right? And kind of gave the platform for me to do outreach, and kind of share my story. Like I like vigils and stuff, and like what the other things are doing, but like with my experience, I really wanted to talk to people and tell them, like, hey, like, what you're seeing on this thing is happening right here, you know. Yeah, and I worked with it, and I can tell you everything about it. And for me, that was really important to me to kind of start talking about my experiences and sharing them, because I had such a, you know, good experience level in farming. And yeah, so for me, that was really powerful to get to start doing. And yeah, we started doing Cubes of Truth and doing that kind of activism. And that was kind of really, really awesome. And started out just a small chapter. My wife would be standing there at the screen, and I'd be outreaching. And then my daughter would be out there too sometimes when she was a little older and holding a sign, you know. And then we grew our chapter to being able to, I think our biggest cube was like an 8-person cube with like 4 or 5 outreachers. Yeah. So it was really, it's you know, it's a really fun form of activism where you can, you know, really, if you're a people person, it's not for everybody to get out there and talk to people too. I mean, you got to really be able to talk to random people on the street. I was never a very social person, so I think it was really nice I really found it easy to just be like, have you seen this before? You know, and then it just leads into so many questions. Like, it's not even something that you have to like really think about. It just kind of flows. Yeah. Especially when you have that experience and you've seen all these things in your daily, you know, work life, and then to put it into words for somebody on the street was just so powerful.
I agree. I mean, it's how I got started in activism, was doing that as well. My mic is not good today. Just wondering why I'm getting feedback. There we go. That seems to be better. But yeah, so the Cube of Truth was what got me into activism 100%. Like, I just love talking to people. I mean, I don't have the experience and background that you've got, but I just found that people were so open, like to talk to you when they saw it was on the screens. And what I love about it is we're not grabbing people, we're waiting for them to come to us. So yeah, it was a big part of my life for 2 years, and I definitely enjoyed it. So is that what you find is the activism that fits you best, is doing street outreach, or is there anything else?
Street outreach or talks. Like I like giving like a presentation. Like I have a really good PowerPoint that I like to give, and really outlining all the things I did in the farms. And I've given to a few different like talks, and I think it's really powerful. Like at ALC, I did a good talk I was on a panel. So I like that kind of stuff too, where you're in front of like a crowd of people and you can really share your story. Doesn't make me too nervous to do. Some people don't like doing that. I mean, it is tough at first. You get like a lot of butterflies and like, are they going to accept me? Like that was something I really struggled with too. Like, is the vegan community going to accept me? And then I was just met with so much. Yeah, I was just always met with so much like love, I guess you could say. Like people wanted to hear my story. It was never judgment, and I thought that was really, really amazing. Especially coming from such a violent background and doing this to the animals. For me, being able to be given up, different chances to speak on my experience and to help other people possibly go vegan and really think about their choices. Anybody can do it. It's not as hard as people think. It's just a matter of changing the pattern that's been kind of engraved into us our whole life and just kind of switching it. And then also, I guess I've always liked photography and stuff like that. So doing like investigating and photography from a distance is always fun to do too. When you're not giving talks and stuff like that, that's something we do a lot of. Just our local farms, just driving around, you just take the camera with you and you'll never know what you'll see. We're starting to find out that there's more laws that actually protect the way animals are disposed. So there's a lot of farms that just like to throw dead animals on the ground. And that's actually like a crime. You're actually not allowed to throw a dead animal on the ground. It has to be contained in a bin. So, recently we found these things out, and now we're starting to actually get these farms accountable for their actions a little bit. I mean, it's not stopping the industry, but at least, there's not going to be dead bodies, just visible sight, So, if you can do small things help too. And, anything you can affect the industry. Just with doing our vigils here in town, they replaced all the security cameras with high definition cameras. They bought like a 10 by 10 security shack and then lined it with all the screens and cameras just to kind of keep tabs on us and stuff. So like we cut into their bottom line, probably like a good $100,000 just making them put new cameras up, just two people. Just me and my wife and my daughter sometimes just standing out there with signs, taking photos of the trucks. And it's amazing what you can catch too just by doing that. And you don't need a super good camera, but just take as many photos as you can when you have the chance, and you never know what comes out. So yeah. I mean, photo activism is a lot of fun too.
And also, if you're a good photographer, you can take those photos, you can send them off to somebody else. If you don't want to speak to people, you can send it to somebody else, and they can do something with the footage, right?
Yeah, and there's so many groups now that that are looking into this stuff. That's what we're finding, and if everybody shares it before you know it, everybody sees it, right? And that's the power of social media, where we can really beat the algorithms if we just kind of all work together and share things, right? And
exactly. The more of us that are doing it, the quicker we'll get there. Totally.
Yeah, we don't.
So, how do you fit your activism into your life? Working with your dad and.
Yeah, that's been tough, but it's been, I guess. Easier too with recovering from a car accident. I've had 3 surgeries now since my car accident, because I had a torn labrum in my shoulder, and then I had a bone fragment behind my scapula, and my meniscus was torn in my knee. So like thankfully, like I've been going through a lot of recovery, which has given me the time to put more into activism because I'm not working. So that's been kind of really lucky in a sense, where I've been able to grow in activism by being able to do that. I mean, I'm going to be probably going back to work next summer, but still, I mean, cubes of truth are nice to do because you can do them in the evening. The TVs look better at night too.
Yeah, I prefer the nighttime cubes, especially like this time of year. Obviously we're in lockdown again here in the UK, but
I know
the screens show much better, don't they, at night? So
And
I don't even mind having the drunk conversations. Sometimes I think,
actually, they're fun.
yeah, they
Sometimes
are
can
quite
be
fun. You get the odd person that's not so fun, but yeah, most
No,
of the
there are.
time, yeah.
Sometimes
And
you get some
people are
people that
less
get upset.
inhibited, aren't they, when they're drinking? They're less inhibited, so they're more
Yeah.
open, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's good. And then I guess vigils too. Vigils can get difficult because we all know they like to shut down the transportation as soon as we arrive. So vigils, I think, are probably one of the harder, like, they're the harder things. Plus, we had that activist in Canada who got run over, Regan
Yeah,
Russell.
Regan.
So that was really like I spoke at that slaughterhouse when we were in Toronto, actually, like, and he'd asked me to speak about my experiences, and I kind of spoke on what I experienced. So I was there where she died, not at the time, the year before, but like just to have been there and to know that, my wife's been pushed by a semi too, just in our local vigils, and the police didn't want to do anything about it. It's sad that, there's people who can protest and are allowed to protest, and for some reason vegans don't get the same right.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah, it's always amazed me, right? Like how certain groups can, get away with shutting down highways in the name of a protest, but you get a couple of vegans that are doing it, and let's lock them up, and they're eco-terrorists, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's like
we're quite lucky in Bristol because I organised the Animal Rights March in Bristol last year, and I was in contact with the police, and we did like a run through of the walk, and they were great, and they were giving me advice.
Yeah.
And they were fantastic. They stayed right the way through the end because their boss wanted to tell me what a great march it was, and he was really pleased with it. So we are quite lucky. And then the one slaughterhouse I go to, which is a pig one, again, we're lucky. The woman that's been running it for the last few years sounds really weird, but she's got a really good relationship with the health and safety officer. So
nice.
They stopped the trucks for us. We asked the driver. Everything's like we tell everyone to stand back when the driver's ready to leave. So they let us take footage. There's one driver that doesn't.
Yeah.
But out of all of the drivers that come all day, there's just the one that won't let us. But yeah, we're quite lucky in Bristol. I mean, you've just had that law passed in Canada as well, right? So
it's slowly getting passed across the provinces. Even in our province, they're trying to do the same law now. They've named it a little bit differently than an ag gag law, but yeah, it seems like they're trying to put it across, and that's kind of what's going to make it harder with vigils, right? If they make these slaughter facilities activist free zones for like 50 feet or however, like that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to make like a buffer zone where we're going to be allowed to protest. We're not going to be allowed to protest where we want to protest, kind of thing, which is, goes against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So, I mean, it'll be interesting once, in Canada to see what happens if somebody challenges it. But I mean, it's tough, right? Because, we had somebody ran over and killed, and because they have this law, it doesn't seem like the driver is going to be held accountable, right? Because, well, the activists were breaking the law technically, right? Like in their eyes. So yeah, it does make it tough when they, it seems like we're getting these things passed. But I mean, that's where, greatly we can still do cubes of truth, and we're not at the slaughter facilities. Or what we've done too is try to catch them loading the animals at the farms. So you're not at the slaughter facility, you're at the farm. So sometimes what we've done is we actually followed the empty semis leaving the slaughter facility and follow them to the farm. And we've actually had, I've had on my YouTube channel, I have a really good outreach conversation with another activist from US, Ethan, and we spoke with.
Oh, you've frozen, Justin. I think I might have lost Justin. Can you hear me, Justin? Because you've frozen. Sorry about this, guys. This is the thing with a live stream. Things go wrong, like the sound echoing. Let me just send him a message and let him know, just in case he hasn't seen it. And then I promise you guys, I will put your questions forward to him. I'm just going to give him a message. And what I'll do is I'll kick him out and we'll see if he can come back in. It still looks frozen to me. Oh, he's left. I think he'll be coming back. Hopefully he'll come back. If he doesn't, is everyone got any questions for me about activism? I do love a frozen face. As long as mine hasn't, because I get some really interesting frozen faces when I'm streaming. Let's see if he comes back. If not, we'll do a part 2 another time, because this guy's got a lot to say and I'm really enjoying listening to his story. I don't know about you guys. He's seen the message. He's just sending me a message back, guys, so I'll let you know what we're doing. He's still typing. Thanks for being patient, guys. You are welcome. Device is not connected. Trying to connect. Here we go. He's back.
There we go. We got it.
There we go.
Yeah, he's back.
I don't know what happened there. We kind of got booted off there for a second. I don't know. My internet must have.
So you were
We got
talking
satellite
about,
internet here, so maybe I got kicked off quickly.
you were talking about talking to the farmer at the chicken farm.
Yeah. So we were. Yeah, I was talking about the chicken farm where we followed the truck and we were talking about the farmer. It was like a super productive conversation. I encourage everyone to go onto my YouTube channel, Canadian Vegan Outreach, and check it out. It was a really conversation, and my friend Ethan, he did such a good job talking with this guy. And it was just one of those things where you didn't expect it to go good, and it ends up going really positively. I'll let everybody check it out, because it's not. I don't want to narrate or anything, because it's just done so good. But it starts off like, oh, I'm talking with. We're here to talk with my enemies, and we're like, well, we're not your enemies, So it was fun, right? Because in the end, we ended up leaving on such positive terms, right? And he explained some things to us that we didn't know that was going on, and yeah, so it's kind of a fun way to do it too, and you might get a more positive reaction from the farmer than we all know the slaughterhouses don't like us, right? So it's kind of cool to talk with a farmer. So it was fun. So yeah, it's another way you can kind of get at it, or do we do also do like a rolling kind of vigil, like in our town. They've slowly stopped this, but you were talking about how they cover up your trucks. The problem
only over the winter with the chickens.
Yeah, the problem we were having is they weren't covering them up even in -5 Celsius, -5 to -10. We would catch trucks driving because they in their eyes they were so close to the slaughter facility, they thought they could go 5 kilometers and no one would say anything. But we've documented many times on our pages where we birds have frostbitten skin, they're red, they're blood, like you can see that their skin's frozen. And we've documented and complained to the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and then they tell us that, the inspector on site says they're fine. I'm sorry, like everyone we've shown these photos to says it's not fine. And I even showed them to like an organic farmer. A bunch of us vegans went to one of these zero carbon neutral dinners that was going on. And, I wanted to see how much veganism they were going to speak on. And of course, it was nothing. It was all this grass-fed stuff and stuff like that, and how they were gonna go to zero carbon neutral stuff. I'm like, you live in Canada. How's your combine gonna run if you don't have diesel? I mean, I ain't seen no electric combines. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna do a carbon zero thing. Or two, I said, if you have to grow enough food to supply 6 months of a Canadian winter. You're not going to do that without machinery, right? Like by the end of the conference, they said an almost carbon neutral. You know what I mean? Because they actually, I had them, right? Like you can't go. I mean, that's the worst thing I see with a lot of the way some of the stuff is going is they almost give false narratives that don't make any sense in a critical thinking mind, right?
Like free range, it looks nice, but it's not the truth.
Well, exactly, right? Like, I mean, sure, it's better than a factory farm, but I mean, like, not everybody's doing that, and you'd have to literally get rid of all feedlots and all factory farms. Just like there's that new movie with Woody Harrelson that just played on Netflix. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I saw a clip, it kind of looks pro animal agriculture, which I'm shocked with Woody Harrelson.
It's funny that that it is a little bit pro natural agriculture, I guess you could say. But the thing that I had a problem with a lot of what I've seen, like some of the vegans. I know Earthling Ed did a video on it, and I commented on his thing right away. I said, did you not hear that they said the 2 diets to move forward at the very end of the movie? It was like 30 seconds. 2 diets to move forward was a vegan diet. They actually used the word vegan in the movie, which the Game Changers didn't do. And I in my eyes, Ed should have gave them credit for that. They actually said vegan and a regenerative diet. So the regenerative diet I know isn't vegan, but I mean, if we were going to the end of the world, those are probably, you're going to still have some people that are going to be stubborn and eat animals. And I would rather they didn't do it out of a factory farm. If these people who are going to do that, and I can't force them to stop, I'd rather they hopefully chose a more ethical way to do it. I mean, like I said, I'm not a welfarist, but I'm a realist in a sense. I mean, we're going to still have these people that are going to do these things, and I wish that they wouldn't. But I mean, it's, in my eyes, we have to get rid of these torture facilities, right? Like, no animal should go through these things.
No.
And the other thing in that movie too, they spoke on was the regenerative soil techniques. Like, I'm really getting into like permaculture and like gardening and stuff like that, growing your own food and being more sustainable. And to me, that was another part of the movie that was really important, was the fact that they actually spoke on regenerative soil techniques, right? Because we all don't want Roundup in our soils, right? We don't want to be eating Monsanto Roundup, right? And all these fertilizers and synthetic things. And really the only way to get rid of synthetic fertilizers is to go with a more permaculture style growing system, where we're doing no-till anymore. Like where we don't till the soil, because every time we till the soil, we break up the microbiome of the soil, and the soil is no longer healthy. And so those are some points in the movie that I thought were really important to catch on. I really just ignored the part about that Alan Savory dude or whatever. I mean, in some movies like that, you have to block out the silly stuff, that they put in basically to soak people in, and take away the good things. And I like to take away the good things. And for me, the movie was, that at least they talked about veganism, which not a lot of movies are brave enough to say the word vegan. And they talked about regenerative soil. And I think, we're in a situation where we really need to start thinking about regenerative soils. And I mean, if we want farmers to change from animal agriculture into plant agriculture, like growing food for us, we have to give them that avenue. And if we don't teach them about permaculture style farming, then at least they can start doing something that's more healthy, like growing fruits, vegetables, and all these things in a system that is working together to build soil and grow healthy, nutritious food, right? That doesn't involve synthetics. And, if we want everybody to be vegan, we're going to need these farmers to step up and grow these foods for us. And that's, to me, one of the most important things of that movie, is because it basically gives animal agriculture farming an out, kind of says, hey, well, what about if you stopped taking all your crops for animal food and you did something else with them? So I don't know, there's some good things to take away from it, but I mean, I really think like there's a way to do permaculture vegan where we're not using animal products. Like we use a lot of plant-based composts, and I really find, you take all your kitchen waste and you put it into a compost, and you do a hot compost, and you can turn yourself into some really nutritious compost, and you add that to your soils and soil teas, and you make compost teas and stuff like that. So I've really gotten into like gardening. I've always loved gardening. It's fun to be outside, and we have to feed ourselves. So it's nice to give farmers that option too. Like I like to speak on too. If we look at farms, they're like a perfect spot to grow food. You have sewer, you have water, you have electricity. I know there's lots of chicken farms in the States that are turning to hemp farms. It's an amazing switch, right? Like
it is awesome. I have a no-dig veg patch myself. So I lay it all up in the winter, and I do a no dig, which is definitely makes a massive difference to the crop that I get just in my back garden. And the Grow Green project by the Vegan Society, which is great for helping farmers transition over to plant-based agriculture. It's definitely the way to go. In fact, at a Cube once we were speaking to a sheep farmer, or my friend, one of the outreaches was my co-organizer at the time. And I was in the Cube and I overheard him saying, if I had a choice, but I don't. So I happen to have one of the Grow Green pamphlets in my rucksack. Really, don't do this if you're a Cube Retriever, you'll get told off. And I was the organizer, and I told myself that. But I'd took my mask off, took my backpack off my back, got the Grow Green pamphlet, and said, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but I just heard you said if you had a choice, here's your choice, take this and
Take
go away.
this.
I don't know what he did with it. He hasn't come back and said, but
Yep. But you might have planted a seed, right? And that's what's important. You could have got him, like, I like that cup analogy people use, like, or the seed analogy, or the percentage, right? Like, you might be that first 5%, you know, at a Cube of Truth. You could be the last 5% that turns a guy vegan. I know one Cube of Truth, there was a movie producer that was filming a movie just down the street from where we were doing our Cube of Truth. We were doing it in front of an NHL hockey game. And he came up to us and he said, you tell the Cube of Truth people in Vancouver, they're the ones who switched me vegan. You guys are awesome what you were doing. And I was like, wow, like, you know what I mean? It's such a good feeling to hear another chapter. You know, you came up to me and to tell me how good of a job another chapter did. And, you know, that's what I thought was always cool about it, right? It was such a uniform thing. You know, I could be anywhere and there's a Cube of Truth going on. I can go jump into a Cube of Truth, and it's not something that, you know, it's not varying. It's very easy to do, right? And just speaking on your feelings. And there's always some really positive conversations, and you get positive stories. And that cup thing, you never know how far you're going to get someone, and then before you know it, you could be that last one, and it's a cool thing.
Yeah, I think those 3 films I watched that day were my 3, you know, a third of each cup.
Third of each cup, yeah, got you there, right? And that's the same thing what the health was to me. That was like basically that just kicked me in the butt in the first day. Like it filled it almost all the way, and it just took a little bit of research for me. Like I said, I don't mind doing research and investigating, and you know, once the right information's put in front of me, it's like, okay, well, let's go this way.
Yeah, well, if it wasn't for those activists making those films, then, you know, I mean, I'd love to interview the woman that made Vegucated, because for me that was the tipping point for me, that film. I think like Cowspiracy helped and What the Health helped, but Vegucated was, because it was an ethical film and it was about the animals, that's what did it. So how do you advertise your events, your cubes? I know the answer to this because I was an organizer for 2 years, but how do you advertise the stage and the vigils?
Social media, right? Like your social media ways, you know, it's just through Facebook and stuff like that, and Instagram, and it's all the only really way we can really advertise them that way, right? So it's pretty simple, I guess.
So I don't know if I put them in the description, but I will put a link to your YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to the Cube of Truth page, the anonymous page, and your chapter as well.
Yeah, and my name here is my Instagram if anyone wants to see my Instagram. So that's also
I think I've already put the Instagram in there, but I'll drop everything else in there, definitely. I want to promote more vegan activists. That's what I'm trying to do, is lift vegan activists up rather than put them down, right? Because otherwise we're not going to get enough of us.
Well, and the more we share these stories, the more we share our experiences, because it's not even so much a story, right? Like everybody has some experiences they can share, and those, even like, you know, your cute, any kind of experiences you have, that's a positive thing. You know, those are always great things to share with people, because they can give people new ideas on, you know, what to say to people, and you know, everybody gets stuck every now and then, so new ideas are always great.
So Abigail, was that for me? If that's for me, it's Vegucated. It was on Netflix at the time when I went vegan, but I don't think it's on there anymore. I think it's on Amazon Prime now. But it's just brilliant, really, really good film. What does it mean to you to be an animal rights activist?
I think it means like, you're standing up for the oppressed, like, you know, for the voiceless animals. For me, it means a lot more. It's like giving back to the animals, for all the animals I killed and tortured and cut their tails off, and you know, all the things I've done to them, right? Like it's something that I'll always think about. And for me, every time I'm able to speak about my experiences, it's basically giving back to all the animals that I harmed. So for me, it's very important to speak on it and to share it. And yeah, it means a lot to me. I mean, for everybody, it probably means a little bit something different. But for me, I like, we adopted he needed a home, a mini pig, and you know, like for the first like 2-3 weeks, it was really tough, because I'd never really seen a pig like in a happy environment, running around and like burrowing himself in a pillow, and like to see all these emotions that an animal has is something that, you know, you didn't see. Like, so for me, it means a lot to speak up and to share their stories and to share what happened to them and what I did to them.
Do you think you didn't see it, or you saw it but ignored it and put it at the back of your mind because of the job you were doing?
I think it was like, I put it in the back of my mind and thought it was acceptable, right? Like, I just thought that's what we needed to do to eat, right? Like, that's to me, it was just normalized that, this violence is part of our way to eat. Like, I didn't even think I knew about veganism. Like, I know when I started working with my dad, we had one vegan laborer work there. We gave that guy such a hard time. like, we were always giving him a hard time. And, I ended up seeing him when I was going vegan at a vegan store. He's like, Justin? I'm like, yeah, man. Chuck, what's up? He's like, what are you doing in a vegan store? I'm like, vegan. What do you mean? What? Like, we bugged him so hard, right? We were always bugging him about his vegan meals and stuff like that. And, and then here I'm the one to end up going vegan, right? And so we end up having a great talk about it, right? And, I said, sorry for giving you a hard time. I didn't understand, right? Like, I didn't understand, didn't know I could be strong and, like, healthy off of just plants, right? It's not taught to us at all. And especially here in Canada, our food system is really designed around, like animal agriculture, right? There's
like you said earlier, hunting as well, it's a massive thing, isn't it? So
yeah, especially I guess fishing and stuff like that. We have so many lakes here too. I mean, I guess, all of that, right? And people still don't understand that.
My husband's got a friend who's been vegan for, I think, probably 10 years now or something like that. And him and his friend have always had these massive discussions. And I've even said to his friend, cows need to be milked though. So I remember saying that. When we went vegan, he didn't say, I told you so, or anything. He just said, I'm really happy for you. Like, I'm glad that you got it. And it was a big shock because we were big barbecuers and my husband was a massive meat eater. We've got photos of my husband licking pork belly because it had a nipple on the pork belly from the pig, and he's like licking the pork belly for the photo, and now he's a vegan. I can't even like think about who that person was. Like, no,
you can still have a vegan barbecue, so it's
we still have we have
it's the thing too. I always thought, what do you do with the barbecue, right? Like, and then you figure out, well, you can just have a vegan barbecue, like it's just silly, right? You almost think that all these things stop just because you go vegan, but really, like, you just changed it a little bit, right? Like, I make some lentil steaks that are like amazing. Like, they're lentil steaks, and you make a dough and you steam them, and then you barbecue them on the barbecue with some onions and stuff. It's crazy. People don't even know. They're like, how'd you make this? I'm like, it's just lentils, like, that's what I mean. Like, once I figured out all the cooking stuff you can do, and I've always been like a little bit into cooking and stuff. I worked in restaurants like when I was 16 and stuff, before I got into farming. And so I always liked cooking. So yeah, it's that's what's amazing. You can turn anything into a great meal.
Well, he's an ex-chef, so he loves it. And I never used to like cooking. Funny enough, I've always gone out with chefs because then I don't have to cook. But I love cooking now. I actually enjoy it. So
that's cool.
Even started baking cakes, and I'd never made a cake before I was vegan. It's bizarre. But that's really anything cool. You can do, I can do vegan, right?
Yeah, and that's what's fun about it, right? Because some people don't understand that. They think you lose half of the good meals, or even like the classic traditional desserts. Like in Canada, we have something called the Nanaimo bar. I don't know if you have. It's like a chocolate with like a custard layer with like coconut and like a crust on the bottom.
Okay.
And it's something that was like a traditional Christmas kind of thing, right? And you can turn that whole thing vegan. I've blown so many people. I've actually made it with like more whole food plant based. We're using like a little bit better ingredients too, not so much processed ones. So yeah, it's fun. I love doing that because you can get out everything. So.
And what would you say to vegans out there? Because this is the whole point of my channel, is to get people to take the Liberation Pledge and to get vegans to become active. So you get to your 100 points, right, and you're a vegan, but you just need those few more to get you out there on the streets or do some stickering or leafleting or a vigil. What would you say to inspire vegans that are not active right now?
Just get out there and try it, because it's not as hard as you think. And I think even with like all the drama that sometimes is going on in the vegan movement, when you're out there at an event, it's not the same. Like, it's not the same. Like, you're actually out there with people. It's a great way to socialize. We all know that going vegan can be kind of difficult in the sense where you lose a lot of friends. So we've gained so many more, like, that's been the best part about going out to activist events, is you end up gaining such a lot more friends.
and being around more like-minded people, because sometimes it can be very difficult when you're going to your job or with family that's not vegan, and you don't feel like you're around anybody that thinks like you. So when you can get together with people after a Cube of Truth and go get some food, or like making a vegan potluck event with your activist friends, right? I find it's just a great way to build community in a community that can be very difficult to find people sometimes, right? It's a great way to get people out there. And start with something you're comfortable with. Like, you don't always have to get out there on the street and talk with people. Sidewalk chalk is always fun to do. It's a great way to get kids involved too. Like, like kids always enjoy that kind of stuff, right? You give them some sidewalk chalk and say, draw some animals, and those are some really good events you have. And then other kids can see to get out there and do it. And yeah, so there's something for everybody, out there. It's just a matter of taking that first step and go out there and do it. You'll always get nervous, obviously, before you meet anybody new. Before every Cube of Truth or every event I go to, I'm always a little bit nervous and jittery and stuff. But I mean, if you just, shake it off, it usually goes away within the first couple minutes. And after you do an event, the feeling is just pretty rewarding. I don't know how you've ever felt after a cube, but I usually can't sleep for the first little, for a couple of hours after a Cube of Truth. You're pretty wound up, right? You had so many.
Yeah, I'm always buzzing.
You're buzzing. It's a weird energy you get, and it's something that can't be really put into words properly. Like, vigils are the same way, especially if you get really good access to the animals and lots of good photos. It can be just like a really invigorating, like really moving experience that can just really empower you to do more.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The vigils I find different to the cubes. I find it gives me a fire in my belly, because I'm upset and I'm angry, and I just fuel that anger and that upset into posting online or going to an outreach event or something like that. But when I come back from a cube, I'm bouncing down the road. I've had like a few cubes where I've had really bad conversations and I haven't been great, but 99% of the time I come back and I'm buzzing. And my vegan family now is just continuously growing and growing and growing. And you're right, when you're sat with like-minded people and you don't have to excuse yourself, or you don't have to worry about someone asking you about being vegan and then telling you to shut up when you're talking about it. It's like, you asked me. It is really different. I'm lucky I've got some really supportive family. I don't know if they're still on, but my brother, who actually told me off earlier for saying hello to his girlfriend but not saying hello to him, they're not vegan, but they're really supportive of my pledge, and they're really supportive of my YouTube channel, and they watched all my videos. And I'm lucky in that sense. Not the same for all my friends and family, but most of them are. But my vegan family are just, I love them. They've changed my life. They really have.
Yeah, especially getting your vegan family close, because the family thing can be hard. Like, my family, my dad actually stopped talking to me since we went vegan. So it took me a long time to meet him, but actually going vegan was a pretty big barrier for him and his family. His wife is did dairy farming growing up. Like, her family owned dairy farms, I should say. So like anything, like they always threw that kind of in our face, like kind of stuff like that, right? So it just ended up becoming really toxic, and it can be really difficult with family. And that's why you building your vegan family up it can be very important, because you need those people to be positive around you. I know that bugs me still to this day. Like, the kids don't really understand why Opa and Oma don't want to talk to them, but I mean, like it's difficult, but I mean, that's how it can be sometimes. And that's why the vegan social life can be so important. So yeah, just take the first step and, go to an event. And vigils are important for people who haven't seen animals in distress to actually get a chance to see them. Not everybody likes doing it because it can be very difficult and hard, but I think it's something every vegan should at least see once. Because if you don't see the animals in that position, like I put them on those trucks, and still seeing them going into the slaughter facility, like driving through that gate, is a totally different experience than like creating the harm that I created. Seeing the animals going in for their final moments, knowing that they'll be dead within 24 hours, is something that like every vegan should actually experience at least once, even how hard it is, even if you do it from a distance. Just be there to kind of see them off, and
give them their best wishes and think about it, right? Because
Yeah.
that is what will empower you to get out and do more activism. A cube of truth is good. It's a great way to see other people's reactions, but when you see animals in that position of, being locked in a cage, that's when you really will step up and you'll, like you said, light that fire, and get you.
Yeah,
really
I agree. Every vegan should go to at least one vigil. It is hard, and it's one of the hardest things we've had to do.
Or even a live auction too, like witness the animals being traded around for money. My wife did that. I didn't go, but I found what I saw with her video. I compared it to that. What's that movie now? With Liam Neeson there, the movie where his daughter gets taken.
Oh, Taken.
Yeah, Taken. Yeah, that movie, Taken. Yeah, Taken. Yeah, to me, it was just like that. It was just like they're parading this animal around a bunch of people, and they're just throwing money at it. And I was like, this is no different than what we're doing with like slave trade, right? Like with anything. And it was a really gross feeling. But like I know my wife said, like it was a different way to do activism where you're allowed in the facility, you can take photos. And it's a similar feeling, like they're still going to be generally killed after, right? So I think it's important for everyone to get out there and see that and feel that.
Definitely. I'm going to move on to some questions from people. So you can start bringing your questions in now. First one, I knew they would ask about food. They're probably going to ask another question in a bit as well. But so the lentil steaks, is that with vital wheat gluten?
Yeah, so it's with it's from It Doesn't Taste Like Chicken. That's the website it's called, and it uses vital wheat gluten. But what I do is I cut it in half and I put chickpea flour with the vital wheat gluten, just so it's not so much gluten. And I find that kind of helps too. Some people don't like too much wheat gluten because it can kind of give it that taste a little bit sometimes. I find it gives it more of a natural, better flavor. It's with wheat gluten and some chickpea flour and a bunch of spices. It's a super easy recipe to do.
I actually cannot go near vital wheat gluten at all.
Yeah, I know some people, it can be replaced.
If I touch it. If I look at it, I'm like, oh, no.
Yeah, well, that's why I try to limit it down, because I do find it does kind of give you that draggy feeling, like it is like a harder thing to digest. So that's why with a lot of recipes, I do like to at least substitute it or cut it in half at least. And I do find that is a good option for people, just to try.
Has anyone else got any questions they want to for ask Justin or ask me? We've got a lovely comment here from Vegan FTA, which I love their channel so much.
Yeah, they're very awesome. They're doing some amazing work right now. Everybody is, especially with how hard it is, especially with so hard it is to do activism right now. I mean, basically everyone's dealing with the same thing right now. Not being able to get out and be active, and risk getting fines for being in groups of more than 5, and that's how we are. We're not allowed to be in more than a group of 5, or it's like a $1,200 fine. So I mean, I was thinking, well, we could do a cube of truth with like 2 people, but what about if you get like 4 people that walk up, right? And then boom, you're over, and then someone's gonna get hit with it. So yeah, it's tough right now, and I think it's tough with social media too, right? We're all being sort of censored in some sort of way somehow, and we really rely on all each other to share our stories.
I mean, I found the lockdown really hard at first because I was doing 4 cubes a month, and we were doing a Saturday day, a Sunday day, a Friday night, and a Wednesday night, just because we had so many volunteers that couldn't go on certain days, and they didn't want to miss one, so we had that option. But we're lucky in the UK because we could have up to 30 people because we're classed as a voluntary organisation, so we could still have up to 30 people. I mean, the most we had when lockdown was lifted a little bit and we started going back on the streets was 18 volunteers. But Bristol's quite a small chapter. I mean, there's a lot of members, but there's a small turnout. But it's not bad. Has anyone got any questions? I think they're all talking about the Liberation Pledge at the moment, which is great. That's why I started my channel originally, was because of the Liberation Pledge. I wanted to.
It's something I've noticed. Like, it is tough to do, to sit down and eat around other people eating non-animal things. Like, I haven't actually taken the pledge. I don't have a thing, but it's something I pretty personally have a hard time doing, is sitting down with people that are eating. So it's something that I basically do without even thinking about it, because it's something I just, the smell of it, even when you go into places that aren't even like 100% vegan and you're getting something vegan from, sometimes when that
they're cooking that thing over there. It's like, oh, like, why do you guys got to have that smell?
Yeah.
You know, so it is tough.
Yeah, something I struggled with. Just I think doing the activism was what made me. I actually spoke to somebody about it after the Animal Rights March last year, who had taken the pledge, and he's a London Cube organizer. And I noticed the fork bracelet, and he spoke to me, and I was dead against it before. And after speaking to him, I was like, "Yep, that's what I'm going to do." And it's just been over a year, and I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
Thank you, UK Vegan family. Does anyone have any questions before we sign off? While we're waiting for some questions to come through, you wanted to talk about horses a bit, didn't you?
Well, yeah, it's something that I don't know how you guys how it is over there, but it's something that I don't know. It's something I've been seeing more in the vegan movement, where people are kind of like mixing other things in with veganism that's not right. They try to validate riding horses as like an educational tool, or saying that, you know, because I'm not using a bit or spurs, it's okay. And, you know, that's something for me, like as somebody who came from a farming industry and causing harm to animals, it's something that I really struggle with, that, you know, people can really confuse veganism and what it means, and try to, you know, almost use animals in a sense in the name of veganism, right? Yeah, it's something that's really difficult.
I got a question from Grumpy Vegan Granddad. I did see this come up earlier from somebody, and sorry I missed it, but I just wanted to wait till the end. So, have you had any PTSD or flashbacks from your previous work? I'm guessing he's talking about the slaughterhouse and the farms.
Yeah, I definitely struggle with some of the things I've done, and like some of the different ways we've killed animals. Like especially that one way, I always think about like the way that one boar looked that day. I'll never forget him. Like I remember that whole situation. So yeah, it is something I struggle with. Not too much flashbacks, but just struggling with being okay with what I did. And you know, like that whole thing, it really took away my empathy for like a lot of things, because you have to really remove empathy from your life in order to do this kind of stuff to animals. So it's something that's been really hard to get back. You know, to have compassion in it for that kind of stuff. Like it's been really tough. Like you basically have to turn that side of your brain off when you're, you know, causing harm to animals, because how do you justify it, right? So if that's why for me, like when I keep seeing, you know, vegans riding horses or purchasing animals from a live auction in the name of rescuing them, when they could just try and find the animals before, you know, find the animals from the owner that want to sell them to the live auction and trying to get them surrendered. You know, we've been working hard at doing that, trying to go right to people and finding animals to be rescued instead of purchasing them, because like we're supporting the industry when you purchase animals from a live auction in the name of rescuing them, you know. And then sometimes what we've seen is sometimes then the person can't handle the rescue they did, and then they end up rehoming them, and then this animal ends up back in the live auction again. So it's a tough thing where
Vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle, and I just I don't know. I just wish more vegans would stay more true, and I think it's a topic that needs to be talked about a little bit more. About you know, what's in, you know, is it okay to do, and what's the proper way to do it, right? Because like it's not okay to purchase animals to rescue them, unless that farm, let's say, was shutting down and going plant-based agriculture, right? If this guy was like stopping his life from animal agriculture, asked, you know, vegans to help him out, and, you know, I'm never going to do this again, I think there might be a gray area there. But I mean, if these people are doing it for a profit, it's wrong, right? Like, you know, and it's something we've seen more and more in Canada, let's just say, because it's something that as we've connected with vegans throughout Canada, we're seeing that more vegans are starting to really feel this way. That, you know, we have vegans that think, you know, horseback riding is okay, or purchasing animals in the name of a rescue is okay. And I think that's just creating a really difficult area for where we're almost having to now become activists on vegans. And, you know, we shouldn't have to be teaching vegans how to be vegans, right? It's a pretty simple thing to do and to understand. And, you know, we have electric motorcycles, so I don't know why somebody wants to ride a horse. You know,
Yeah.
like, you know, like if you don't want to buy a gas motorcycle, go pick your up electric one, or a couple grand more, and silent, right? You know what I mean? So, and way more comfortable to ride. I mean, I've ridden a horse when I was a kid and stuff. I mean, it's, you know, it's nothing to rave about. I mean, it's bouncy and hard on the animal.
I've only ridden a horse like twice. I'm never been a horse person anyway. So I think once when I was like 20, when I was a student, and then once when I was a kid, and that's about it. We've got a question from Leon, plant-based Leon. So vigils at the moment in the UK are not taking place for the next 4 weeks, Leon. But I did attend 2 vigils last week, neither of which I managed to get any footage at because the chicken vigil they were covered up, and then the horse one the day before, there was a truck that got there before we did, and then we left early, but there were some other activists there, and then the trucks turned up after I left, so it was great. But there are, if you check out the Save movement just for your local nearest city or town, you're bound to find like ours is Bristol Animal Save. So usually if you put the place name before, that's right, isn't it, Justin? And then Animal Save afterwards, you'll find the local one. But vigils over there, are you getting any vigils done over there at the moment or not?
Not right now. We're in a pretty big lockdown over here. Like I said, we have like a 5-person social gathering limit.
Oh, yeah.
$1,200 fine. And then our big problem too is our local slaughter facility here has had 2 or 3 deaths and like 60 COVID cases. So, that's kind of a concern, right? If we're standing in front of there and there's that many sick people there, like I have an immune compromised person living with me. My grandpa lives with me. So like I said, he had cancer and stuff. So he's got 1 lung now. And so I can't really afford to, put him at risk and stuff like that. So, I mean, I wish we could get out there more, but like I said, we try and do the photography activism, like, trying to do it from, a distance or catch the vehicles as they're driving on nice days. Like when they don't have their tarps on, if you just drive beside them, you'd be amazed the photos you can catch. That's something we've really done a couple times because we live so close. So we'll be coming back from our local town and, we can get right beside a truck and the photos you can get from that. And we actually even had a semi swerve into our lane and try to hit us doing that too, because he didn't like us taking photos, and we actually pressed charges on him for driving dangerously. And, after that, we purchased a dash cam for our car too. So if that ever happens again, we actually record the whole thing. And it's a good idea too for activists. I'll throw this tip in there for everybody. Since I started my activism, I've always worn a body camera at all my events, at every event I go to. I don't know how you said your police are pretty good there, but I mean, we've had a lot of issues with security trying to tell us we're not allowed to protest on public sidewalks and stuff like that. So in Canada, I just always recommend it. They're $100, amazing tool to have on your body at all times. And it's the only way you can really protect yourself 100% is to have video evidence. And, for my Cubes of Truth vigils, I recorded a police officer calling my wife stupid. So we actually filed a complaint on him because he got mad at my wife saying, well, my wife would never step in front of a semi, you're stupid. And, and I had it all on video, so I was able to file a complaint on him. So it's a very helpful tool for all activists to use, and I've always used one. And I always recommend that to everybody when I do a talk, if I can remember.
Yeah.
I think it's a very
good advice. I mean, like I said, we are lucky. I mean, the police, even when I was doing Cubes, they would come up and check on us to make sure we were okay.
Yeah.
If we'd had any trouble, like, are you guys okay? If you need us, just let us know. And I don't know what it is about Bristol Police, but obviously they pulled down the statue, didn't they, in the Black Lives Matter march, and the police were video recorded saying this is brilliant. We totally support them. So we got another question here from Bohemian Bee. It's a great question. Have you ever helped any slaughterhouse workers to change their line of work after listening to your inspiring story?
Can't say I've talked with other slaughter workers who've left the industry. I can't say I inspired them to go vegan, but they left the industry for similar reasons where they, like we have a transport truck driver who he will not drive livestock anymore because of the stuff he was seeing. Like in the wintertime, we would get animals freezing to the trucks and stuff. And he said they'd have to pull them off, like frozen to the truck when they get to the slaughterhouse. So there's a lot of very similar stories where workers, they won't go back into the industry. I also know like an electrician who has to work in farms sometimes, he won't ever go back in them either because it's just too hard. So I can't say I inspired anybody, but me telling my story, I usually get a lot of conversation going with people who have experienced these kind of things. Even doing Cubes of Truth, you run into a lot of people who have either been a transport truck driver, hauled the animals, and they'll start telling you their experiences, or people who've worked in the slaughter facilities. I had a really good interview. It's on my YouTube channel again, with a guy who worked at Granny's, explaining like just how they were taking advantage of them. Right? They brought him over from Somalia, and they said basically, you can work here, and if you don't want to work here, you can go back to Somalia. And it was tough, right? He said, like, what it did to his hands, and the abuse, and the boss, he was so mean to them, and and they're locked in on this contract, and they don't have a choice, right? And and this is the thing too now with this whatever's going around right now, where people are getting sick, the severe acute respiratory syndrome. I don't like calling it the other name. But because that's what it is. It's a severe acute respiratory syndrome, right? I mean, then the other name they gave it is just to scare people in my eyes. The real thing is a respiratory syndrome from an avian flu. And the fact that they're making these workers work there, they won't shut the plant down, and they've had 2 workers die and 55 people are sick, right?
You just go to show you the animal agriculture. All they care about is their back pockets and how much money in their wallet. That's it. That's all they care about.
Yeah, sharing my stories just helps other people talk about their experiences. So I think that's been really powerful.
Okay, another great question, Grumpy Vegan Grandad. What do you say to people who take pity on animal farmers and who may go out of work because of the vegan activism?
That's a good one. There's always going to be work for the farmers. They just have to really look for it. Like, they believe they're doing, they're feeding Canada. That's kind of what we were always told, you're feeding Canada kind of thing. But I mean, there's so many different avenues with farming where you can do to create revenue. I think it's just a matter of, them going out there and experiencing them. It's tough. Like, I can't say you pity them though, because like they know what they're doing. In the end, I mean, they're still the ones making that choice every day to go do that job. But I think educating them and giving them that chance is, something we can all do in our ways. Sometimes it doesn't always go that good, but going out of work from it, I don't know. Like, that's what I always speak on with farmers, and they always seem pretty. They always agree with my ideas, right? I mean, it's in my eyes, it's a no-brainer to take a chicken farm and turn it into a hemp facility, or a hog farm and turn it into, maybe a little bit of work. But I mean, you have sewer, you have water, you have electricity, you have all the things to grow. And we're clearly going into a time frame where growing seasons are shortening, and it's harder to grow outdoors. And I think indoor agriculture is the next step. And I think explaining that to a farmer when I've done it has always been pretty positive, because they actually see that is an option. It's just a matter of who's going to pay for it, right? I think that's the big part, right? Who's going to? Yeah. There need to be programs in place that help people switch out. And I know there's some group in the States that's kind of working towards that. I can't remember what they're called right now.
There's definitely the Vegan Society, like I mentioned earlier on, the Grow Green Project. They have a support system in place that will help farmers transition. So
exactly. So I think
like vertical farming is the thing that excites me most. I think it's brilliant.
I think I have a tower garden right here, vertical tower garden.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's like a big tower garden, holds 26 plants. It's hydroponic system, but yeah, we have all our kales on here, basil, Swiss chard. Had a pepper plant growing on here too. So I mean, that's what I mean. Like, I think indoor agriculture and growing is such an important thing. And like I said, farmers know how to do these things generally. Like, they all grow fields, they all grow something. It's just a matter of educating them and helping them transition into that. And I always say too, wouldn't you be happier not working with animals? Like, I worked with animals. It's so stressful. Like, it's hard to tell an animal to do something that they don't want to do. And you're constantly doing that with farming, and you're using the cattle prod tasers, you're using all these devices to force animals to do things. I'm like, could you just imagine just going into a field and plucking weeds, or just collecting fruit and collecting stuff, like, to me it's a more peaceful way of doing agriculture.
So Bohemian B said, Justin, very important question: pineapple on pizza, yay or not on your Nelly?
You got it. Pineapple on my pizza. I love pineapple.
I'm waiting for UK vegan family to ask their other food question because I haven't seen it pop up. But
a lot of people like pineapple on their pizza, but my wife always gets mad at me when I get pineapple on the pizza. It's always going to be half and half.
you know what? I used to like it when I was younger, but I don't crave it so much now. It's weird.
Oh, yeah.
But
It gives a nice like kind of sweetness to a pizza. I think it kind of gives it that little sweet and savory kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, my husband's very fussy. He doesn't like sweet corn on his pizza, and I love sweet corn on pizza. But he's like, no, why? Sweet corn has no place on pizza.
We actually recently just had a pizza with corn on it. It was actually really good.
Here we go. There they are. What took you so long, UK vegan family?
Well, tempeh is good. Like when it's like that maple tempeh, like when you make those like tempeh strips, you know what I mean, for like a bacon replacement kind of thing. But I mean, tofu can be made into so many things. So I mean, yeah, I mean, tofu is pretty good too. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I like tempeh, but tofu is.
Yeah, I think you get a little more out of the tofu.
Yeah, plant-based Leon likes this. I just want to say as well, check out plant-based Leon's channel if you haven't, people watching. Also check out UK Vegan Family, Grumpy Vegan Grandad.
Yeah, I saw him on David Ram's show not so long ago. So it's
yeah,
cool that he's on here.
He's really good. Satan Inside, check his channel out as well. He's going to be moving on to some activism stuff soon. And there was I'm Easy Vegan, who was in the chat earlier. And he's not on tonight, but I am wearing some of his merchandise. So if you check out Defender of Animals, he's got a YouTube channel. He's also got some clothes out and really good brand.
Cool.
Another point for tofu, definitely UK vegan. What's this one? But yeah, I just want to thank you so much for coming on because this is all very last minute. I was just looking for people to interview, and your wife commented on a post that I put on Facebook, and I think I sent you a message, and then I didn't actually ask you for an interview, and then I went, wait a minute, no, sorry, I meant to say,
no, it's all good
on the channel.
No, it's all good.
Plant-based Leon, he is mint. Mint is the easiest plant. I thought you were saying plant-based Leon is mint. He's hilarious. You should check out his channel though.
Yeah, I will.
If you need a laugh, plant-based Leon is where to go.
Yeah, I wrote it down here, so I'll check them out.
But yeah,
thank everybody for coming on, and some great questions, and thanks for having me too. It was really awesome to speak with you, and get to kind of share my experience with you and your vegan family in your area, and I appreciate getting the chance.
Yeah, hopefully you'll inspire some more vegans to go active. That's all I care about right now. And if you want to plug your channel as well, if you want to let everyone know what your channel's called.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is called Canadian Vegan Outreach. And then my Instagram is Justin204 Vegan. And then we have on Facebook, Defend Animals Manitoba is our other group right now. And and then Anonymous for Voiceless, but that's just like a private group, as you know, right? Just for the cubes and stuff. So
I did actually share your YouTube channel in the description section. I know it's on there for sure. I remember as soon as you said it, so it is on there. It was great to connect with you, and it was great to talk to you. Really easy. I mean, this is the first time we've spoken properly, and I feel like, what is that about vegan activists? You feel like you've known them forever, right?
Yeah, that's a very true point. Like most interviews I end up having turned out to be really awesome, and we just all have so much in common, and I think it's just part of that vegan family, and you're just a little bit spaced out and a little far away from each other, but I mean, we all have the same beliefs and views, and it'd be fun to come check it out one time. If you're ever in Canada, let me know, and if I'm ever over there, I'll let you know.
Yeah, definitely. We've got some great food places in Bristol as well, so if you're ever over here, let us know.
I have a friend that comes over. He just got married with a girl from out there, and she's over in Canada with him, but they go back and forth, so I always see like such great food out there.
Yeah, he does have a pet pig, Leon. We were talking about that earlier. He's got a rescued pig.
Yeah. That's Bubba. So he was on a Facebook group, and he was by him, like he was in a condo, so he had no space to move around, and he was just needing a home. So we adopted him, and we were going to try and find him a new home, but once we had him here, we just couldn't I couldn't think about giving him to somewhere else where like he could get passed on, like, you know what I mean? Like he could end up needing a new home. because I knew I could give him a forever home, and I would, do my best to, keep him safe and happy. And we built him. He's got like a fancy hay house outside there in the corner there. You can see that big hay thing there, the plastic on top. He's got like a hay fort in the back on the deck there where he can go hang out to get his own like little space and stuff. And he's his own person, and that's what's really cool when you get to see. So I never got to see a pig that was happy. I mean, my boars, I always treated them a little bit nicer in the barn, but like seeing Bubba and his personality, and he talks like he'll start like like they don't just oink, like he's got all kinds of sounds he makes, and he's got so much to say sometimes. And to run, like to see them run and to see them like, because in the barn you would never see them like run properly and stuff like that. So like we have a pretty big backyard that's all fenced in, and he I have a raspberry row that's 100 feet long, and he'll like just fly down that raspberry row so quickly and oinking all the way and making all these fun happy sounds. And he likes to like jump around and spin and then like flop and roll, and there's just so many things I've never seen in the barns. It was just so cool to get to see. And like I said, I couldn't picture him having to be rehomed again and to go through more stress and trauma like that. And
he's so happy and settled with you guys now, right?
Well, yeah, and it helped me a lot too, because like I was sad for the first while, because I felt bad for what I did to all the other animals, and to be able to give him a happy environment and to see him grow like from a piglet, and you kind of see the pig years as they grow up too. It's kind of interesting, because like he was like a baby piglet, and then he was like a teenager piglet, and now he's like turning into a little bit older than a teenager piglet. And you can tell because just the way he acts around you, like he knows not to, like at first he was trying to learn that like biting and nibbling thing, but now he knows like what hurts and what doesn't. And it's starting to change a bit, where he's just like nudges you now, and he like lies down beside you. So it's kind of fun to see them grow, and all these emotions that they have that you'd never see in the barn. So it's sad, right? Because they were stir crazy, right? And they don't get to see this. So it's go out to a sanctuary. If you guys haven't been to a sanctuary, I always say that to people too. Like, support your vegan sanctuaries. Pay attention too, because some places, I hate to say it, they say they're vegan, but they're not, and it's tough it hurts when you find out they're doing unethical things. So try and do your research first, and just make sure that you're supporting vegan sanctuaries, because there are a lot of people that can be doing things that aren't going to align with your values. That's something we found with sanctuaries in Canada, that something that people sometimes get the lines mixed up with veganism. So do your research, and then go out to the sanctuary and experience it, because sanctuaries need our support as vegans. They can't fund and raise these animals by themselves without the community's help.
We have a great sanctuary near us called Dean Farm Trust, and they're fabulous, and they're 100% vegan, and they work their asses off. They just amazing.
Yeah, if we don't support them, they won't be able to keep up the amazing work they do, and it's a very hard job. It's it's difficult, and it's very costly. Like there's no it's very costly to run a sanctuary too, with all the vet bills and the food and stuff. So I don't know. I always say to vegans, try and get out there and support them. Even if you can just help with $1 helps. Anything helps with them.
Even if you're volunteering your services for a day and just work there for a day for free and help them out that way, that helps as well.
That's very important, and you'll feel good. You'll feel good seeing the animals in that happy environment. Like I'm able to see Bubba in a happy environment, but for other people that aren't able to do that, that's the best way to see pigs just in the happiest place they can be. Right. Such a misunderstood animal, and it's all of them, right? Same with cows and everything, right? And it's fun to see them in these happy environments. So go out to the sanctuary and support your local ones, and it's very important.
Definitely. And I think that's a great way to end it as well, because I don't think sanctuaries are talked about enough. But
no, they're not.
Again, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone that's stuck with us, and I know the numbers have gone up and down, and it's 2 hours almost, but
thanks everybody.
Feel like that. Thanks again, Justin, and thanks everybody. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.
Awesome. Thank you.